You cancel plans and feel relief instead of guilt. You turn down invitations not because you're anxious, but because the thought of going out feels like work. You spend your Friday night reading, thinking, or doing absolutely nothing, and you wake up Saturday feeling more alive than you have all week. Society has a word for people like you. They say you are antisocial, isolated, depressed, or damaged. But here's what psychologists discovered when they actually studied people who genuinely prefer solitude. They got it completely wrong. Their assumption has always been that if someone chooses to be alone, something must be broken. That preference for solitude is a symptom, not a choice. A wound, not a strength. For decades, researchers lumped everyone who spent time alone into the same category, as if the person fleeing a party in panic and the person who simply didn't want to go were experiencing the same thing. They weren't. There's a difference between being lonely and being alone that most people never really consider. Loneliness is a hunger. It's your mind telling you something is missing, that you need connection and aren't getting it. It aches. It echoes. It's the feeling of being surrounded by people and still feeling invisible, or sitting in an empty room and feeling the walls close in. Being alone is something else entirely. It's not hunger. It's more like choosing when to eat and when to fast. It's the quiet after noise, the exhale after holding your breath. For some people, solitude isn't where they hide from the world. It's where they return to themselves. Loneliness drains you. It makes time feel heavy and slow. Every minute alone feels like too much. You check your phone constantly, hoping for a message, an invitation, anything that proves someone is thinking about you. The silence isn't peaceful. It's loud with absence. But chosen solitude? That's when time becomes yours again. Hours pass without you noticing because you're completely absorbed in your own thoughts, your own projects, your own inner world. The silence isn't empty. It's full of possibility. You're not waiting for something to happen. You're creating what happens next. For the longest time, psychology didn't have language for this distinction. If you preferred solitude, you were labeled an introvert. And sure, that fits some people. Introverts recharge alone and spend energy in social situations. That's real. But it didn't explain everyone. Some people who preferred being alone were actually great in social situations. They could talk for hours, charm a room, lead a team. They just didn't want to do it very often. They weren't recharging from socializing. They simply found solitude more interesting. If you actively avoided social situations, you might be called a loner. That label carried weight. It suggested something damaged, something off. And then there was the word antisocial. In clinical terms, that means lacking empathy, disregarding other people's rights and feelings. It's a serious diagnosis, and it has nothing to do with preferring to be alone. None of these labels fit the person who simply prefers their own company. The person who isn't scared of people, doesn't hate people, isn't avoiding people out of fear or pain. They just genuinely like being alone more than being with others. Psychology needed a new category, and eventually they found one. In the early 2000s, researchers started separating social withdrawal into different types. Some people were alone because of anxiety. They wanted to connect but feared rejection or judgment. Others were alone because of avoidance. Something had hurt them, so they pulled back. And then researchers found a third group. People who weren't anxious, weren't avoiding past hurt. They just had low motivation for social interaction. They didn't fear parties. They just found them boring. They didn't avoid people. They just preferred their own company. The term they used was unsociability, not antisocial, not a social. Unsociable. It describes something real, a genuine preference for solitude that has nothing to do with fear, trauma, or inability. These people weren't struggling. They were fine, better than fine in many cases. When researchers measured their well-being, their creativity, their life satisfaction, they found something unexpected. Unsociable people weren't suffering from their solitude. They were thriving in it. They reported lower levels of depression than socially anxious people. They had stable friendships. They pursued hobbies and goals with focus. The difference, it turns out, is written into how their brains process stimulation. Think of social interaction like spice. Some people need a lot of it to feel satisfied. They crave the heat, the intensity, the burn. Their nervous systems are wired to seek out stimulation, and socializing provides that dopamine hit they need to feel alive. Without it, the world feels bland. Other people have a lower tolerance. Not because they're weak or broken, but because their systems are more sensitive to stimulation. A little goes a long way. What feels energizing to someone else feels overwhelming to them. Not in an anxious way, just too much. Like turning up the volume on a song that was already loud enough. When unsociable people spend time alone, their brains don't shut down. They light up in different ways. Solitude activates the parts of the mind responsible for introspection, abstract thinking, and creative problem solving. The prefrontal cortex becomes more active. You start processing experiences, making connections between ideas. There's also something called the default mode network. It's a system in your brain that activates when you're not focused on external tasks. When you're daydreaming, staring out the window. This network weaves together ideas, memories, insights. It's where creative breakthroughs happen, where you finally understand something that's been bothering you for weeks. But here's the thing, the default mode network needs space to operate. It can't do its work when you're constantly responding to external stimulation. Alone time isn't passive, it's not shutting off. It's a different kind of mental work. The kind that requires silence. The kind that produces insight rather than reaction. History is full of people who understood this instinctively. Maya Angelou rented a hotel room just to write in solitude. Nikola Tesla walked alone through the city, working through his inventions in his mind. Einstein called his solitary walks his thinking time. Virginia Woolf wrote about the necessity of a room of one's own, not just as physical space but as mental territory that belonged to no one else. These people weren't isolating themselves out of fear. They were protecting the conditions under which their minds worked best. Insight doesn't come from noise. It comes from the space between the noise. But here's where it gets tricky, and this is the part that matters most. There's a difference between choosing solitude because it restores you and retreating into it because the world feels too hard. Between withdrawing to recharge and hiding because connection feels too risky. Between being alone and being safe. If you prefer solitude, you need to ask yourself an uncomfortable question. Am I choosing this, or am I avoiding something? Healthy solitude feels like coming home. You're not running from anything. You're returning to something. Yourself, your thoughts, your rhythm. When you're alone, you feel more like yourself, not less. Your mind expands. You're not afraid of people. You're just more interested in what happens when they're not there. You can connect when you want to. You just don't want to very often. Defensive solitude feels different. It's quieter, yes, but the quiet hums with tension. You tell yourself you prefer being alone, but underneath, there's a story running. People are exhausting. Relationships are complicated. It's easier this way. Safer this way, less painful this way. Here's how to tell the difference. Healthy solitude energizes you. You spend time alone and feel more creative, more clear, more yourself. You emerge from it ready to engage with life on your own terms. You might not want to socialize much, but when you do, you're present, capable of real connection. Defensive solitude depletes you over time. At first, it feels like relief, but eventually, it starts to feel like a prison you've built yourself. You want connection, but you've convinced yourself you don't. You avoid situations not because they don't interest you, but because they feel risky. If you're not sure which one you're experiencing, try this. Imagine someone you genuinely enjoy spending time with invites you to do something low-key. A walk, something simple. If your first feeling is a calm, maybe, or not right now, but I'd like to sometime, you're probably in healthy solitude. You're making a choice based on preference. If your first feeling is anxiety, dread, or an immediate search for an excuse, something else might be happening. That's not preference. That's protection. This isn't about judgment. Defensive solitude makes sense. Maybe people have hurt you. Maybe you've been rejected so many times that being alone feels like the only safe option. That's real. That's valid. But it's also different from genuinely preferring solitude. And recognizing the difference matters. Because people who genuinely prefer solitude don't need other people to feel whole. That's not coldness. It's completeness. They're not walking around with a void waiting to be filled. They're already whole. They enjoy deep connection when it happens, but they don't need it to feel like a complete person. This often makes them better at relationships, not worse, because they're choosing connection from a place of fullness, not need. They're not looking for someone to fix them, complete them, or rescue them from loneliness. They're looking for someone who complements the life they've already built. When you're already whole, you don't cling. You don't lose yourself in relationships. You don't compromise your core self to avoid being alone. You engage with people because you want to, not because you need to. And that creates healthier, more balanced relationships. In many non-Western cultures, this is just normal. In Japan, there's a concept called ohaidarizuma, the practice of doing things alone. Eating alone at restaurants, traveling alone, going to movies alone. It's not seen as sad or strange. It's seen as independent, even admirable. There are entire restaurants designed for solo diners. In Scandinavian countries, solitude is woven into the culture. Long walks in nature, quiet evenings with a book. Personal space is respected, even expected. Silence between people isn't awkward, it's comfortable. Meanwhile, in much of the Western world, being alone in public still triggers discomfort. The person eating at a restaurant by themselves gets sympathetic looks. The solo moviegoer seems like they couldn't find anyone to come with them. But what if they're not lonely? What if they just wanted to be alone? What if this is exactly where they want to be? Here's what solitude-preferring people need to hear, and what the world needs to understand. Choosing to be alone in a culture that equates solitude with sadness is not a disorder. It's not a red flag. It's not something that needs to be fixed. In a world that never stops talking, that constantly demands your attention, your presence, your energy, the ability to be still with yourself is not a weakness. It's a superpower. You're not broken because you'd rather stay home. You're not cold because you don't crave constant connection. You're not missing out because you're not interested in what everyone else is doing. You're just wired differently. And that wiring, when honored, leads to deeper thought, sharper creativity, and a kind of self-trust most people never develop. You know yourself. You know what you need. You're not looking to other people to tell you who you are or what you should want. The people who misunderstand you will always misunderstand you. They'll call you antisocial. They'll worry about you. They'll try to drag you to events for your own good. But they're operating from their wiring, not yours. And that's fine. You don't need their permission. If you found yourself in this script, if you felt seen in these words, there are other patterns worth exploring. The way solitude-preferring people process emotion differently. Why they're often more comfortable with silence than most therapists. How their brains respond to boredom in ways that unlock insight. But that's another conversation. For now, just know this. If you prefer being alone, you're not alone in that preference. You never needed to justify it. You never needed to apologize for it. And you never needed to explain it in the first place. You're not waiting to be fixed. You're already whole.